Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of Around the Octagon. Today, we are joined by a special guest, a man in which I had the pleasure of covering this past weekend down in Atlantic City, New Jersey, a professional mixed martial artist currently fighting in the PFL, Sarek, the Berserker Shields. Sarek, thank you very much for joining us tonight. How has life been since your big win?
Of course, brother. Thank you, man. Thank you for having me, man. And yeah, it's been great. Getting a win is always amazing. Spending time with family, always, again, it's just always amazing. Just being able to relax after a big fight like that. Like I said, the family is everything to me. So being able to spend time with my kid and my wife, it's, no better feeling than that.
100%. And I know during the post-fight press conference, you talked about having a lot of family in the Jersey area, and that was going to be your celebration. So just how was that celebration after the win?
It was amazing, man. Just, I haven't seen that side of my family since I was probably like 18. So being able to see everybody, all my cousins that, were running around, as little kids, being able to have a beer with them, it was a really cool feeling. It was cool.
Definitely. That's awesome. And to kick us off here and get into the interview, can you kind of give us your general background on how you got into mixed martial arts?
Yeah, well, the general background is just I was in the military, and I kind of realized that I didn't want to make a career out of it. And, long story short, is just I was on deployment one time, and I saw some UFC highlights of the previous year, and I was in my, work office, and, I kind of just looked up at the TV, and I was like, I think I can do that. I think I can do that after, deployment. So the first day back from deployment, I jumped in my car and I went straight to my first, MMA gym, the closest one I could find. And then after that, it was kind of like a done deal from there. I fell in love with it, never stopped. And luckily I had the, fortunes and opportunities to be able to keep going and, pursue my dreams. So, and, that kind of just led to this moment right here.
Well, shit, man. From thinking you could do that to being on the weekends fight and then doing exactly that, hell of a start, hell of a way to start it. Would you say that was the moment or, the influence that first got you in MMA, or have you always been a fan, or, or do you think that was the moment where you were like, this is what I want to do, and MMA is definitely what I want?
Yeah, I've definitely always been a fan. When I was in high school, I was on the wrestling team. So like whenever like big UFC events would come out, like we would all get together at one of our houses and, just as a team and just watch the fights and stuff like that. But if you ask like the 16 or 17-year-old me, like, hey, do you think you'll ever get in the cage? He would say absolutely not. But, I never really thought I would actually be the one getting into the cage and, throwing down. But some things, changed, my perspectives on life and, what I'm capable of. And, luckily I gave it a shot and luckily it worked out and I fell in love with it. So, I'm extremely grateful and happy that I took a chance on it.
Well, we're glad we can watch you on the weekends, man.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun fighter to watch. I will say that right now, seeing it firsthand. So kind of moving on a little bit, you were saying when you were deployed, you were looking up at the TV and you're like, I could do that. So once you got back and you started training, was the goal to go and fight professionally, or you just like, I like to have the chance to roll around and see what this can be?
I kind of like went in there. I didn't really have an exact plan because at the time I didn't really know, what, the logistics of it was. I didn't really know about like amateur careers or, professional careers. I didn't know anything about it. I kind of just walked into the gym and, I talked to the head coach there and I was like, hey, I wrestled, basically my whole life. I'm a good grappler. Obviously, I need to learn, Muay Thai and, jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. But, I'm really interested in, fighting. And, that's when I started training. And then 3 months later, I had my first amateur fight. So
Definitely. And I will say one thing, the Berserker, that nickname seems to fit you very well. It seems to fit your fight style very well. So when and how did that come to be?
My dad gave it to me. My dad, my first nickname was like Little Brock or whatever. My old teammates down in Southern California, they gave it to me just because, when I first started fighting, I was like 235 pounds. Everybody thought I would probably just be a light heavyweight, but as I kept training, I kept losing, weight, more weight, more weight. And then gradually my body kind of settled in between 195 and 200, which is when I realized I was a welterweight. But they kind of just called me Baby Brock because, I kind of just went in there, kind of just bulldozed my way into, all the victories, especially my amateur career. I kind of just, like I said, I bulldozed my way into, finishes and, stuff like that. But how I got the nickname Berserker is when I fought for my first amateur title, and my dad was like, what's up with this Baby Brock crap? Like, he's like, no, he's like, dude, the way you fight, man, you're like a fucking berserker, like you kind of just go in there, you don't give a shit what happens, you just start off and you never stop, he's like, so, he got me a custom made shirt that said Berserker on it, and that's when I changed my nickname to the Berserker.
All right,
Good
man.
story.
So before we get into the nitty gritty of fighting and your MMA career, outside of that fighting, what's something that the fans might not know about the Berserker? Do you have any hobbies to balance out the intensity that we see in that cage?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't really call it a balancing out because like everything I'm addicted to, man, it's adrenaline filling. Like I'm an adrenaline junkie. You give me something high to jump off of, as long as there's a body of water underneath, I'll jump off of it. Anything that goes fast, anything to get my heart rate and blood pumping, like I will do it. Like, when it comes to, adrenaline, that's all I'm about.
Oh yeah. And oh shit, I forgot this one was mine. So take us inside the fight camp. Let's get into the fight side of things. What sort of training are you doing, and who's in that corner pushing you when you guys are in those training sessions?
I have my head coach, Fabiano Scherner, who, fought in the UFC. He's the head coach at American Top Team, where I'm currently training right now. And then I have my striking coach, Dylan Fussell, who has obviously also fought professionally. And then, who helps me in camp, I have Ed Herman, Mike Pierce, all those dudes, just, UFC veterans, but who is regularly in my corner. It's normally Fabiano and Dylan.
Hell yeah.
So
It's a
American
good
Top
team.
Team, obviously you guys have a bunch of killers amongst every single promotion out there. Where do your camps take place? I know there's a lot of guys down there in South Beach, but are you down there, or does it kind of depend on where the fight is?
No, I normally spend my whole camp here in American Top Team Portland with, Fob and Dylan and Ed and Mike, and, there's Ricky and Brent too. But for this last fight, actually, I did fly down to Coconut Creek, and I trained there at ATT headquarters for a week. And man, that experience was awesome. Like, those dudes are savages, man. Like, it was a great experience. Even in a short term of a week, I learned a lot.
Yeah, definitely. That has to be awesome to be around. And while on the topic of your fight camp and whatnot, I know obviously you'll be sitting there, you'll go through the film and everything. So last fight, I know your opponent came out in an opposite stance as expected. Do little things like that, without really giving away too much or anything, but do little things like that really throw too much of a wrinkle into the game plan, or is it more just, all right, here we go?
No, not really. I mean, it kind of like it caught me off guard a little bit, but my plan will always be the same, no matter, how you start. Like, I start fast, I start strong. My goal is to wear you down within the first, 2 rounds, because, cardio is a really big thing for me. So, I try to wear you down. I try to get you tired without getting tired as well. So,
For sure. And I think one of those things is definitely the mental side of it, and your mentality going into it. So getting into that, how do you handle that mental side of the fighting? Do you have any rituals or mindset tricks that get you that laser focus come fight night?
I pray for one. I pray. And then after that, I pray right before I get into the cage, and then, but like during the day of the fight, I turn my phone off. I don't talk to anybody. I just visualize what I want to do in the cage, and then I do my utmost best just to execute my vision of what's going on inside my head into the cage.
Yeah, 100%. And moving on to this past weekend, that cut you opened up on Nick Meck's head has gone viral amongst the MMA community. What does it feel like seeing that picture go around and being like, yeah, I'm the guy that did that?
Yeah, man, it's cool. It's cool. I'm really grateful. I can finally, showcase, what I'm capable of. And I talked to I talked to Nick after the fight, and he's a really cool dude, man. And he's a super stud. He's super respectful. I have nothing but, respect for him, but it was cool just to, it was cool to see that, going around, having people that, I haven't talked to in years, send me, the picture or the reels and stuff like that. And they're like, telling me how, cool it is just to, see me succeed and stuff like that. So I'm extremely grateful, and it is extremely, extremely cool.
Yeah, that was awesome. I know during the post-fight press conference, people were asking you, they were like, oh man, some people are saying that's the nastiest cut I've seen. And I will say in person, that was the nastiest cut I've seen up front there. Like that was pretty damn sweet.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, I like to be humble. I like it was a pretty bad cut. I mean, I could see his skull when I was, talking to him. But again, it's MMA. I'm pretty sure there's a lot, a lot of, gnarly cuts out there. It is cool that, people are, trying to, get that on the list as one of the gnarliest cuts out there. So.
Yeah, definitely. And after that win, you're now on a 3-fight win streak, 2 of which in the PFL within the last 2 months. What kind of confidence does that bring you?
Oh man, it makes my confidence, skyrocket, man. I kind of feel like I'm on top of the world right now. I'm, really hoping they, call me back for either, another showcase fight or, whatever fight they want to give me, and I'm hoping to get into the tournament next year. That would be a dream come true.
Yeah, 100%. And while you mentioned the tournament, I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on the tournament style and those back-to-back-to-back fights. I mean, you just did it pretty much, but what do you think about that style?
I love it, man. Like, I love it. I love the schedule. I love, knowing that, I am going to fight regardless. Not a lot of people know this, but like Nick Meck was actually my third opponent for that night. I had, 2 opponents drop out, and, luckily Nick, accepted the fight. So that was really cool. But knowing, you're going to fight on this date at this time, that tournament style, I really like it.
Do you think it changes? Sorry to cut you off, Zach, but do you think it changes a little bit how you think about going into these fights with that tournament style? Like maybe you can prep a little bit longer for the opponents you might see in the future, or you kind of just take it one fight at a time, you think?
I just take it one fight at a time. I don't really look past, one fighter. No, I never do. That's how, mistakes are made, and that's how you don't even get to the next fight. So I always take it one fight at a time.
For sure. I can respect
Definitely.
that.
And I was just kind of curious, what do you think your biggest takeaway was from this past weekend?
Oh, man, just, that I'm capable of, being there in the big leagues, in the big show. My fight with Joseph Luciano, man, I kind of like, it wasn't my best performance, but that's also because, I'm not going to lie, I was nervous, man. I felt like a deer in headlights. It was my first time on the, a stage that big. I fought in the LFA a couple times, which is also another great promotion, but the PFL, man, it's just, you're there, you're in the big leagues, you're fighting all these, stud dudes. And, I just, for some reason, I kind of just froze, and I went back to what's natural. And, in this fight, I felt like I showcased a lot more of what I can do, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I will say from firsthand experience, well, not that I fought, but from watching firsthand experience, you definitely do deserve to be on that big stage. Very, very fun fighter to watch. So I'm happy you are there.
Well, I appreciate it, brother. Thank you.
And talking about the big moment, this card was headlined by Thad Jean, who you have a little bit of a history with. I know you fought him earlier in your career. Did you have a chance to watch that fight?
Yeah, I did. After that, I watched the whole card, man. It was, and Thad, that dude's a beast, man. And again, I have nothing but the utmost respect for that dude too. Like, that dude has earned what he has received, and nothing can, nobody or nothing can take away what that dude's earned. And I'm really happy for him, man. And he's a great guy. I've talked to him a lot, and he's really cool.
That was one hell of a performance he put on, but
Yeah.
kind of even going from there, like, is that a matchup that you want to get back down the line, or?
No, I mean, possibly, it really all just depends, like, again, I'm kind of just like focused on, making a name for myself at the moment. And hopefully, the PFL, like I said, gives me, more showcase fights, to, see what I'm made of, or, again, maybe they call me back for the tournament. Like I said, like the tournament is like really my end goal for next year. Like that would be, that would be the biggest blessing for sure.
So speaking of, I guess, the things coming, and just the future in general, welterweight, your division is a stacked division in whatever promotion you look at. What do you think sets you apart from the other guys that, line up across the cage from you, that's giving you so much success?
I think it's just my style and my drive, and it's kind of like a, what do they call it? Like a double-edged sword. Because like, again, like, I'm not a very patient person. I kind of like, I get after it, whether it goes, 1 minute or the full 15 minutes, I'm kind of just, I'm getting after it the entire time, so, sometimes that can lead, to my downfall, or sometimes it can lead to me getting my hand raised. So, and, luckily, that fight with Nick, it led to me getting my victory. So, and I'm grateful for it.
100%. And I know you just mentioned you being a double-edged sword, and you have finishes both by submission and by knockout. Is there one that you prefer more that's a little bit more fulfilling for you?
Yeah, I like submissions more. I mean, it's cool to get knockouts and TKOs and stuff like that, but making someone want to end the fight on their own will because, they can't, take getting choked or arm barred or, whatever, that I feel like that's more fulfilling in, my eyes.
That's a killer mindset right there. And I will say, I thought you came pretty damn close to that guillotine.
Yeah, so did I, man. I heard him gurgling a few times, but like I said, dude, Nick's a stud, man. And like and again, like the guillotine is probably one of my best submissions. So he, like, just the fact that he kind of just like stood up and shook me off, man, it was kind of like, man, what do I got to do to put this guy away, man? Like, he's so tough.
Yeah. And lastly, before we get into a few fun questions towards the end of this, how soon can us fans expect to see you back in the cage competing?
Whenever they call, man. Like I said, I'm ready. If a fight falls through on one of these next few cards, man, like if it's a welterweight fight, like I'll be there. If they call me, I'll cut the weight. I don't care.
Awesome. Selfishly enough, I kind of hope someone pulls out in the next coming weeks and we can see you back in there.
Me too. That'd be great.
So getting a little bit into those fun questions, who's a dream opponent for you in the PFL or beyond? Could be in another promotion. Is there anyone active or retired that you want to fight and that you wish you could share that cage with?
Man. I mean, if I'm being honest, man, like I haven't really, thought of anything like that, I mean, maybe, if I'm being on, like shit, man, like maybe Colby Covington, I feel like that would be a fun fight.
Hell yeah.
Pretty cool, and again, like I like Colby too. I like his style, I'm not a big shit talker like he is, but, I feel like, a fight between me and him, that would be kind of like actually a really good, scrap.
Yeah, you'd definitely hear it at those press conferences, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so another one for you. What, talking about the fans and on that big stage, what's the wildest or most memorable interaction you've had with the fans? Have you had anything crazy happen?
Not in person, but, after the fight with Joseph Luciano, man, just the amount of hate messages that I got from people is quite hilarious, man. Like, those people are ruthless. And I'm like, it's just, scrolling through my messages, just laughing because like all these people, like they just don't have anything better to do but to message someone that they don't even know, saying like how much they wish, I would die, or how much they hate me, or how much I suck. I'm just like, okay, like, get a life.
Yeah,
I will
definitely.
say the MMA fans are absolutely brutal, no matter how you boil it down. It's a very toxic online platform between the MMA fans.
Oh,
Yeah, for
100%.
sure. Do you ever talk shit back, or do you just kind of let those, brush those off the shoulder?
No, I just brush those off the shoulder, man. Like, those have no negative influence on my life. Again, like, I have the people that love and support me, and that's all I care about, man. Like, and again, like, I'm not a big shit talker to begin with. Like, I'll never talk shit to an opponent. Even if they're talking shit to me, like, I'll just sit there and stare at you and probably just, crack a smile and, whatever. But, I don't let that stuff bother me.
Yeah, the stoic berserker, man. I like it.
I try.
And then one last one for me. If you weren't an MMA fighter, what career path do you think you'd be crushing right now? What do you think you'd be doing?
I would probably go into law enforcement because I'm actually currently applying to that like right now. So
No shit.
There you
What's
go.
your long-term goal? If you do end up going into that instead of fighting, I mean, what's your goal there? Is there anything you want to do? Maybe SWAT team action?
yeah, that's exactly what it would be. I talked to a recruiter actually a couple days ago. I would have to be on, patrol for a few years first just to get the experience, and then I would apply to the SWAT team.
Well, shit. That's sick shit, man. Respect to you. I appreciate it.
That is awesome. And my last question as well: if you were in charge of designing an MMA Mount Rushmore, what 4 fighters are you putting on it?
Ooh, man. I'd have to go with GSP because he is actually my favorite fighter of all time. And, I get a lot of my, influence and motivation from him, and just, how I hold myself and how I act. So I would have to say GSP for one. Just on, stats and record alone, I would have to go with John Jones. Shit, man. And again, I know he never won a title, but I would probably have to go with Cowboy Cerrone because, again, another one of my favorite fighters of all time. I've always loved watching Cowboy fight. And then for my fourth, man, probably would have to go. Maybe. I don't know. Because there's so many great fighters out there, man.
It gets tough. You have like Habib there, Mighty Mouse there, Anderson Silva. Like I always struggle with this question as well.
Yeah, it's always the last one that comes down. But now that you say his name, I would probably have to say Mighty Mouse. That dude is also just crazy, athletic, fucking doesn't get tired. That dude is, yeah. I would probably have to go with Mighty Mouse.
Yeah, I couldn't argue there, and that is all that we have for you tonight. And I just want to say the floor is yours if you have anything else you want to say or anywhere where the fans could follow you on social media platforms and whatnot.
Yeah, man, my Instagram handle is S_Shields_S. And for all the people that support me and that are behind me no matter what, the love and support that I receive from you guys. It doesn't go unshone, man. I notice that. And even if, like I said, I get people messaging me that I haven't talked to in years, saying how, proud of me or proud they are of me, stuff like that. And stuff like that goes a long way, man. And, I appreciate that. All my friends, my family, my teammates and my coaches, everyone that helps me get ready for these, big events, these big fights. Like I always tell everybody, you climb in the cage alone, but you don't prepare alone. The victory is a team effort, like no victory is just by yourself. So I owe, everything to my friends, my family, my teammates, like I said, my wife, like, not a lot of people know this, but, I almost stopped fighting. My wife is like, no, you're not, you're going to see this, through the end. So you're going to keep pushing. And luckily I have her behind me, and, I wouldn't be you know, I told her all the time, like, I wouldn't be the man I am today if it weren't for her. So I owe everything to her. And, you know, my son, like I said, man, just my teammates, they just, you know, we have a great team, great family. So I owe it all to them.
Definitely. I'm definitely happy that your wife convinced you to keep on fighting. You're the absolute man, and I can't wait to see you back in the cage competing. Thank you again.
Thank you, brothers. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Sure, man.